What I always loved about the South was the quiet of the water at dusk. But that night, that quiet felt broken. I had stayed in my Uncle Rambert's old floating house to fish early in the morning, though the truth was I needed a few days away from the noise of the city. The house creaked with every small wave, and the smell of damp wood brought back childhood memories. At 11:40 p.m., I heard distant thumps, but I didn't think much of them. Raccoons often rummaged around the boats. However, the thumps came again minutes later, stronger, heavier. I set the fishing line aside and stepped onto the small dock with my flashlight. The swamp was still, like a dirty mirror. A massive splash sounded nearby. Not the kind a big fish makes. It was something displacing water, a lot of water. "Who's out there?" I asked, feeling ridiculous. Nothing. But when I aimed the flashlight at the edge of the water, I saw something that made my breath stop. Footprints. They weren't from boots, nor from any typical animal. They were long, deep, as if something impossibly heavy had stepped on fresh mud. And they were recent, very recent. I decided to go back inside. I had the feeling that staring at the swamp too long was an invitation. When I closed the door, the floating house tilted slightly to the left. I thought it was the current, until a sharp thud hit the outer wall, then another, stronger, and then a horrifying sound, wood giving way. Something was climbing onto the side platform. I stepped back slowly. The windows were fogged, so I only saw distorted shadows, but something huge passed in front of one of them and blocked all the interior light. My body reacted before my mind could. I ran to the room where the small auxiliary motor was, the one used to reposition the floating house during storms. The blows intensified. They didn't feel like attempts to break in, they felt like tests, as if whatever was out there was evaluating where the structure would fail first. Then I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, moving along the outer edge of the house. I started the auxiliary motor, not to flee, to unanchor the house. The ropes were tight, tied to two old posts. If I managed to snap them, the bayou's current would drag me away, or at least away from it. I pushed the motor to maximum power. The house vibrated, the boards groaned. Outside, that being, whatever it was, stopped moving, as if it realized what I was doing. A violent blow struck the wall. The house leaned, the motor forced again. Crack! The first rope snapped. The second gave way seconds later. The floating house began drifting on its own, pulled by the current. The blows stopped. I only heard one step, one only, as if the creature approached the edge and watched me as the distance widened. I didn't run, I didn't scream, I just watched through the fogged window as that enormous shadow faded behind me, motionless, as if it knew the current was taking me away, though not forever. At dawn, I washed up 3 kilometers away, stuck in a bank of mud. The house was scratched in several places, and on the side platform, one massive handprint was embedded deep into the wood. When I arrived at the bridge of Cypress Bend that night, I was certain the reports were exaggerated. I don't believe in impossible creatures or in the stories told by half-drunk hunters trying to impress each other. That's why I agreed to inspect the wildlife sensors we had installed along the old roadway, because I thought I'd prove it was just technical errors or some large animal bumping around, nothing more. I got there at 10:17 p.m., according to the clock on the dashboard. I parked to the side, left the hazard lights on, and stepped out with my flashlight and the tablet that showed the sensor data. The humidity was so heavy that each breath tasted metallic. But the silence, that was the first thing that felt wrong. At that hour, there should have been frogs, insects, even distant birds. Instead, there was only a warm wind blowing across the swamp, pushing the mist gently toward me. While I checked the cables along the right guardrail, I heard a thud under the bridge. A solid, heavy impact, like a fist hitting soaked wood. I crouched, thinking a large animal might be pushing debris around. But the second thud came louder, higher. No longer from beneath, but from the structure itself. I froze. The sensors picked something up, a weight reading that didn't match any known animal. Too heavy, too steady. And it was moving, walking across the bridge. I aimed my flashlight upward, but the beam barely penetrated the darkness. The rusted metal gleamed faintly, nothing more. I took a few cautious steps forward, my boots echoing hollow across the span. Then I heard footsteps answering mine, just ahead. Heavy, dragging steps, like something placing its full weight into each stride. They stopped when I stopped. My flashlight began to flicker, the humidity threatening to kill the beam. I slapped the casing and the light surged back for a brief moment. That brief moment was enough to see it. 15 meters ahead, a massive shape stood on the bridge. I didn't catch any details, just a broad, black silhouette with a hunched back and arms hanging low, almost reaching its knees. Its breathing was deep and forceful, vapor rising into the dark like smoke. I stood frozen in place. The creature took one step toward me. Only one, but it cracked through the silence like a tree splitting. My body reacted before my brain. I stepped back. It responded instantly, closing the distance faster than anything that size should have been able to move on a slick bridge. It didn't run like an animal. It ran like something determined to catch me. I dropped the flashlight without meaning to, and it rolled toward the edge. That's when I sprinted for the car. I threw myself inside, slammed the door and locked it just as something struck the rear panel with such force that the entire vehicle shuddered. The hazard lights flashed across a massive shadow hunched over the trunk. Trembling, breathing, I drove away without looking back. The next day, we inspected the bridge. No clear footprints, but deep dents in the metal, and one of the sensors ripped out as easily as if it were a dry twig. I never thought a minor assignment from the newspaper could push me so far outside my comfort zone. They sent me to Marais Noir, a remote swamp in southern Louisiana, where locals claimed they'd seen a large figure moving between the cypress trees. They didn't talk about monsters, just something big enough to scare dogs and break fences. I went because no one else wanted to. The heat was thick, almost oily. Each step in that dark sludge made a hollow sound, as if there were empty space beneath it. I carried a flashlight, a camera, and a notebook. Nothing more. Yet the moment I passed the line where the asphalt ended, I felt like I was stepping somewhere I shouldn't. It didn't take long to find the tracks. Deep impressions in the mud, wider than a man's and too long to belong to a deer. They were uneven, like something heavy had walked while dragging part of its foot. I bent down to examine them, and that's when I heard the first sound. A sharp crack, a branch breaking. It didn't sound like a tree falling from the wind. It sounded deliberate. I froze. In the silence that followed, only the mosquito buzz filled the air. Then, to my right, I heard footsteps, not fast, not clumsy, heavy, controlled. A sound I'd never heard in a swamp, something walking with purpose, not feeling its way through the terrain. I switched on the flashlight and aimed it, but the fog reflected the beam, letting me see only vague shapes between the trunks. The only certain thing was that something was there, something big, something watching me. I moved slowly to circle around the sound, thinking only of returning to the car. The mud reached my ankle, nearly pulling me off balance. As I steadied myself, I heard another sound behind me, closer. I didn't want to turn, but I did. A tall silhouette slid behind a cypress tree. I didn't see details, just a quick movement, too tall to be a person and too upright to be a four-legged animal. My breathing accelerated without permission. I stepped back carefully, trying not to make noise, but the swamp betrays you. A loud splash seemed to trigger whatever was out there. I heard it move to my right, then to my left, as if it were trying to cut off my escape. It wasn't running, it was walking like something that knew I was cornered. I hurried toward a shallower patch, but the ground gave way. I sunk to my waist in a hidden pool. The camera hit the water and disappeared. I struggled to climb out as the footsteps drew closer, each one clearer than the last. There were no roars, no growls, only heavy breathing, human or almost. I pushed myself toward the edge. Something hit the water behind me as if it had missed a grab. I didn't look back this time. I ran, trembling, following the faint direction of the path. When I reached the car, my legs were shaking so badly I could barely shut the door. I never learned what followed me. I only know it wasn't an animal I recognized, but not something impossible either. It was something that wasn't supposed to be there.